Milo had never been inside a royal palace before. As a young human technician, he usually worked on ships or research bases. But now, he stood in front of the golden gates of Valaria's royal palace, holding a toolbox and a datapad, feeling completely out of place. Valaria was a beautiful planet. The skies were soft purple during the day and turned deep blue at night. The trees had silver leaves, and the air smelled like fresh rain, even when it didn't rain. Milo had arrived with Earth's diplomatic team a few days ago. Their job was to help build peace between humans and the Valarians. Milo's job was simple: install a new communication system inside the palace. But even with simple work, this place felt different, bigger, quieter, almost magical. The Valarians were humanoid, but different from humans in many ways. Their skin was rich teal blue, and their eyes had a soft glow. They moved with grace, spoke gently, and followed many old traditions. One of those traditions, Milo had quickly learned, was that outsiders must never enter the west wing of the palace. It was where the royal family lived, especially the young. Princess Lyrin, stay away from that area, one guard had warned kindly. Not even most palace staff go there. Milo nodded every time. He didn't want trouble. He just wanted to finish his work and leave quietly. That was the plan. But the plan didn't go well today. He was working in the East Quarter, checking a floating drone that had stopped responding. The drone buzzed suddenly and flew off faster than expected. Milo groaned and ran after it, turning corners, passing quiet halls, trying not to lose it. The drone flew around a tall statue and disappeared into a doorway. Milo chased it without thinking. The room he entered was quiet, too quiet. He froze. It was a large chamber with a round window, letting in golden light. The air was warm and smelled like soft flowers. A long curtain moved gently with the breeze, and then he saw her. She stood near a table, holding a piece of cloth, probably part of a ceremonial robe. She had her back to him. Her long dark hair fell down smoothly, and her rich teal blue skin caught the light softly. The princess, Milo's eyes went wide. He had walked right into Lyrin's private chamber, and she wasn't dressed. For a second, time stopped. Then she turned, and their eyes met. Her expression was not anger, not fear. It was shock. Milo quickly turned around, heart pounding. "I'm sorry," he said, staring at the wall. "I didn't know. I was following the drone. It went this way. I didn't mean to, I swear." He heard no reply, just silence. Then, gentle footsteps. Milo expected guards to grab him any second. Maybe he'd be dragged out and thrown into a cell. But instead, he heard a soft voice. "You're the technician from Earth?" Milo turned his head slightly, but kept his eyes down. "Yes, my name is Milo. I'm sorry, Princess Lyrin. I didn't mean to enter. I didn't know it was your room." She was quiet again. Then she said, "You did not look at me with hunger or fear." Milo blinked. "What? I have seen how others look at me like I'm something strange or like a prize. But you look surprised. That is all." Milo didn't know what to say. He still didn't dare look at her. "I'll leave now," he said quietly. "I'm truly sorry." He backed away slowly, not turning around, until he was out the door. Then he ran down the hall and didn't stop until he reached the main chamber. That night, Milo couldn't sleep. He lay in his small guest room, staring at the ceiling. He had walked into the princess's private chamber. That alone could get him removed from the mission, maybe even punished by the Valarian Council. But she hadn't screamed. She hadn't called the guards. She hadn't spoken to him calmly. Why? The next morning, he expected to be called in for questioning. But nothing happened. Instead, a messenger came to him and said, "Princess Lyrin wishes to speak with you, privately." Milo stood still. "Me?" "Yes. She asks for a quiet meeting in the upper garden. No one else will be there." Milo felt nervous, but curiosity pushed him forward. The upper garden was peaceful. Blue flowers floated on shallow water, and soft music played from wind chimes. Lyrin stood near a glowing tree, now fully dressed. In her royal robes, she looked calm. "Thank you for coming," she said. Milo bowed a little. I still don't know why I'm not in trouble. Lyrian tilted her head. Because you did not mean harm. And I wanted to speak with someone different, someone not trained to lie with fancy words. Milo smiled awkwardly. I'm definitely not trained. She gave a soft laugh. Tell me, she said. What do people on Earth think of Villaria? They think it's beautiful, peaceful, a dream. Lyrian looked at the water. It is beautiful, yes, but not always easy. Being born royal means many things are chosen for me. Milo nodded slowly. Yeah, I guess I don't know what that's like. You are honest, she said. I felt it the moment you looked at me. Not like the others. They stood in silence for a moment. A breeze passed between them. May I ask? One thing, Milo said carefully. Why did you really ask to meet me? Lyrian looked at him, her voice calm. Because that moment, when you saw me, was real, and I have not felt something real in a long time. Milo's heart beat a little faster, but he said nothing more. And so, in the upper garden of a quiet palace on a distant world, a new bond silently began to form, one that neither of them fully understood yet, but it had started. Milo returned to his room feeling confused. The short meeting with Princess Lyrian stayed in his mind like a soft echo. She hadn't been angry. She hadn't punished him. Instead, she spoke with calmness, and even curiosity didn't make sense. Milo wasn't special. He was just a technician, sent to install systems and do small jobs. No royal ever cared about someone like him, but Lyrian had looked at him as if he mattered. The next day, he went back to his usual duties. He worked on the palace's voice relay system in the East Wing. His tools buzzed softly, and he kept his head low, trying not to attract attention. A few Villarian nobles walked past him, barely noticing him. But one of the guards stopped near him and whispered, "There's a message for you." Milo looked up. From who? The guard smiled slightly. From someone in the garden. Milo nodded and packed his tools quickly. He walked to the same place as before, the upper garden, where soft blue flowers floated on water and silver birds sang from the trees. There she was again, Princess Lyrian, sitting alone on a white stone bench, hands folded in her lap. She looked peaceful. Milo, she said, standing as he approached. Thank you for coming again. He nodded. I didn't think you'd call me back. Lyrian looked away for a moment. I have many around me, servants, advisors, but very few people. Milo tilted his head. Aren't they all people? She gave a soft smile. Yes, but I mean people who speak without fear, without trying to win something from me. Milo scratched his neck. I guess I just speak whatever comes to mind. Exactly why I wanted to speak again, she said. They walked together beside the flower-filled pond. Lyrian moved with grace, and Milo tried not to trip on the smooth stone path. I'm surprised the king allows this, Milo said quietly. Lyrian shook her head. He doesn't know, nor do the court members. It is better that way. For now. Milo stopped walking. Wait, you mean these meetings are secret? Lyrian turned to him. Would they let me walk with a human technician if they knew? I think not. Milo frowned. Won't you get in trouble? Perhaps, she said calmly. But I am the princess. Some rules I can bend. Not many. Just enough. Milo looked down at the water. I don't want to cause trouble for you. You did not cause anything, she said, her voice gentle. The truth is, I was the one who let you in. Milo looked up, surprised. What do you mean? That day, she said, when you entered my chamber, I could have called for the guards. I could have shouted, but something inside me paused. I saw your face. You looked away without hesitation. You said sorry. You meant it. She touched a small pendant around her neck. I live in a world where most people wear masks. But you did not. Milo said nothing, but he felt a strange warmth in his chest. Over the next few days, their secret meetings continued, sometimes in the garden, sometimes in quiet corners of the palace. Lyrian asked him questions about Earth, about music, animals, cities, and food. Milo tried his best to describe simple things like rainstorms and hot drinks, laughter with friends, or watching the stars from a rooftop. Lyra and listened closely, always with wonder in her eyes. In return, she shared Villarian stories Stories of sky creatures, singing stones, and royal traditions passed down through the stars. Were you ever free to choose anything? Milo asked once. Lyrian paused. No, she said softly. Everything was chosen before I was born. My path, my duties, even who I might marry one day. Milo looked away. That sounds heavy. It is, she said. But when I talk to you, for a short time, that weight becomes lighter. But not everyone in the palace was blind. Kale, a noble warrior from a strong Valarian house, had noticed the princess slipping away more often. He had once hoped to become her chosen match, though Lyrian never showed interest. Now, he watched her from the shadows. One evening, Kale followed quietly as Lyrian stepped into a private hall. He kept his distance but saw enough. The princess met with the human technician, and the two of them spoke as if they had known each other for years. Kale's eyes narrowed. A human, a low worker, and Lyrian, the royal heir. Unacceptable. Later that night, Milo sat in his room, thinking about everything. He stared out of the window at the stars. He didn't know what was happening between him and the princess. It wasn't love at least, not yet, but it was something real. A connection. A knock came at his door. He opened it to find Lyrian standing there, her cloak pulled low. Is something wrong? He asked. She stepped inside quickly, looking over her shoulder. I had to speak with you, she said, her voice urgent. What happened? I think someone saw us, she whispered. Milo's heart sank. Who? I do not know. But there are eyes in the palace, always. Milo sat down slowly. Then maybe we should stop meeting. Lyrian didn't answer at first. Then she looked at him. Do you want to stop? Milo looked into her eyes. No, but I don't want you to be hurt because of me. Lyrian reached into her cloak and handed him something small, a folded piece of paper. What is this? He asked. She smiled faintly. A map of the old garden paths. They are not watched. We can still meet. If you wish. Milo held the paper tightly. He looked at her again. I wish. Lyrian smiled, then stepped back into the shadows and disappeared down the hallway. That night, Milo stared at the paper map in his hand. He didn't know where this path was leading. It was strange, unexpected, and maybe even dangerous. But it was real. And sometimes that was enough to take the next step. Milo walked carefully along the old garden path, holding the map in his hand. The palace was quiet under the soft light of Valaria's twin moons. He followed the path exactly as Princess Lyrian had drawn it. The stones were cracked, and vines covered most of the walkway. No guards, no cameras, no watchers. Just shadows and silence. Then he saw her standing near a tall silver tree, waiting. Lyrian wore a deep blue cloak that blended with the night. When she saw him, she smiled. You found the way, she said. Of course, Milo said, walking closer. You drew it for me. She looked at the sky for a moment. This path was once used by my mother when she wanted to be alone. Now no one remembers it but me. They sat on a round stone bench near the tree. A small stream flowed beside them, glowing softly under the moonlight. Milo looked at her hands. They were folded in her lap, calm, graceful. You're not afraid? He asked quietly, of what might happen if we keep meeting like this. Lyrian shook her head. I should be. But no, I'm not. Why not? Because this is the only part of my life I've chosen for myself, she replied. And if I must carry all my other duties, then I want at least one thing that belongs to me. Milo nodded. I understand. As days passed, their meetings became more regular. They met in quiet places, old balconies, hidden gardens, silent libraries. Lyrian always found paths that avoided the palace eyes. They talked about everything. Lyrian wanted to know about Earth, the cities, the stars, the seasons, and even silly things like how ice cream tasted or how a dog barked. Milo told her stories about his childhood. He showed her a small photo from his pocket, a picture of his little sister back home. Lyrian smiled warmly when she saw it. She looks kind, Lyrian said. She is, Milo replied. She never stops talking. I think you'd like her. Lyrian laughed gently. I'm sure I would. In return, Lyrian shared her life, how she was trained to speak, to bow, to sit, even to breathe the proper way. Every word, every step was watched, but no one ever taught me how to feel, she said once. They only taught me how to look royal. Milo didn't know what to say, so he simply listened. And sometimes that was enough. One evening, Lyrian brought him to a special place, a crystal balcony high above the palace. The air was thin but clear. Stars stretched across the sky like rivers of light. This place is sacred to my family, she said. Only those with royal blood are allowed to stand here. Milo stepped back. Then I shouldn't be here. You are here because I invited you, she said firmly. They stood side by side, looking up. This view, she whispered, reminds me how small we are, and how much we still don't understand. Milo glanced at her. Like, why do people from different worlds would end up standing here together? Lyrian nodded. Yes, like that. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then Lyrian told him an old Velaryon tale. There's a story, she said, about the mirror flame. Long ago, a fire fell from the sky. It burned blue and silver. Those who looked into it saw themselves not as others saw them, but as they truly were. One woman looked into the flame and saw not a queen, but a girl who wanted to be free. So she left everything behind and walked into the stars. What happened to her? Milo asked. No one knows, Lyrian replied. But some say she found her true self. Milo smiled. That's a good story. I think about it often, Lyrian said, especially now. But not everyone remained blind to their meetings. Kale, the nobleman who once hoped to win Lyrian's hand, had not stopped watching. He had spies in the palace, servants who whispered, and guards who listened, when he heard that the princess had been seen near the forbidden balcony and that the human had been nearby too. Kale's suspicion grew stronger. This is not friendship, he told himself. This is something more, and it must be stopped. Kale had power. Not enough to confront the princess directly, but enough to stir trouble quietly. He began spreading whispers among the council members, questions about the human's presence, rumors about broken traditions, and doubts about the royal families. Judgment. One night, as Milo and Lyrian sat under a hanging vine, she suddenly looked serious. Things are changing, she said. I feel it. Milo looked at her. What do you mean? Eyes are watching. Not just one. Many. Milo lowered his voice. Then maybe we should stop. She turned toward him. Do you want to stop? No, he admitted. But I don't want to bring harm to you. You're the princess. You have a future to protect. Lyrian looked down. What is a future if I am never free in it? Her words were quiet, but they stayed in Milo's heart. Then she reached into her robe and pulled out a small object, a simple pendant shaped like a falling star. I made this, she said. It's not royal. It's just mine. I want you to have it. Milo took it gently. Thank you. He looked at her with quiet respect. There was something in her eyes he hadn't seen before, a soft fire. Not from tradition or duty, but from choice. Lyrian looked at the stars. Do you think a human and a Velaryon can ever truly walk together? Milo smiled. Maybe not easily, but maybe that's what makes it worth trying. She smiled too, and somewhere in the shadows, unseen by either of them, Kale watched silently, his eyes cold and his mind already planning what to do next. Kale stood at the edge of the corridor, hidden behind a tall pillar, watching the shadowy garden below. There they were again, Lyrian and the human. He clenched his fists. This had gone on long enough. The princess, the future queen of Velaryon, walking secretly with a human worker, laughing, talking, smiling. To Kale, it was a shame, a danger, an insult. He turned and walked away quietly, his mind racing. He didn't yet have enough proof to accuse them before the full royal court, but the whispers were growing, and soon, one push would be enough. In another part of the palace, Milo was repairing a panel in the outer wall. His hands moved slowly. His thoughts weren't on his work. He kept remembering what Lyrian had said the night before. What is a future if I am never free in it? Those words stayed with him. She had opened a part of her heart to him, and now he felt something he hadn't planned to feel, a deep need to protect her. Not as a soldier or guard, but as a friend, maybe something more. But he also knew how fragile this situation was. One mistake, one rumor, and everything could break. He looked up at the sky. What am I doing here? He whispered to himself. That evening, Lyrian invited him to a quiet library on the far side of the palace. The room smelled of old paper and starflowers. Tall bookshelves curved around the walls, and a soft light filled the room from crystal lamps. I used to hide here as a child, Lyrian said, running her hand over a wooden desk. When the lessons were too long, or when I wanted to be alone. Milo smiled. Seems like a good place to hide. She sat beside him on a bench. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then she said, Kale is asking questions. Milo tensed. He knows. He suspects, Lyrian said. He's been watching. Speaking to council members. I hear things, even when they think I don't. Milo leaned forward. Should we stop meeting? Lyrian looked at him carefully. Do you want to? No, he said. But I don't want you in danger. She reached for his hand just for a moment. It was the first time they had touched like that. Then we must be careful, she said. Very careful. But Kale had waited long enough. 2 days later, he walked boldly into the royal council hall. The king, Lyrian's father, sat on the high seat. 12 council members stood round the circle. Wearing long robes, Kale bowed deeply. I bring a matter of great concern, he said. The king frowned. Speak, Kale. Kale raised his head. It is about Princess Lyrian and the human technician. The room grew still. There have been many private meetings, secret walks, unwatched corners. Kale continued. I believe something improper is happening. Do you have proof? The king asked sharply. Kale's lips curled. No hard proof. But I have witnesses. Servants have seen them. Guards have noticed their patterns. The human has been where he does not belong. One of the elders spoke. This cannot be ignored. Another added, if the royal heir is breaking sacred rules, the people will lose trust. The king raised his hand, summoned both the human and the princess. Now, Milo stood in the center of the council hall, nervous but calm. Lyrian stood beside him, her face composed, her hands folded. Kale stood to one side, proud and watchful. The king looked at his daughter. Lyrian, is it true you have been meeting this human in secret? She nodded. Yes. Gasps filled the room. And why did you hide it? Asked a council member. Because you would not understand, Lyrian said. Firmly, you would twist it before hearing the truth. Then speak that truth, the king said. Lyrian turned to face them all. This man, she said, entered my private chamber by accident, but in that moment, I saw something no one ever gave me: honesty. He did not try to gain favor. He did not ask for gifts. He did not treat me as a title or as something strange. He simply said sorry and meant it. She took a breath and continued. I met with him because I wanted to, not because of duty, not because of law, but because it was my choice, my only choice in a life filled with commands. The room was silent. The king looked at Milo. And you, what is your part in this? Milo spoke carefully. I never planned for this to happen. I never expected to speak with a princess, but she spoke to me like I mattered. And I listened, that's all. One of the elders shook his head. This is not normal. This is dangerous. The people, Lyrian interrupted, want leaders who are honest. I will not lie to them, even to save myself. The king stared at her. Then he stood. You both have broken tradition, he said. But you have also shown courage. I cannot allow such a bond without testing it. He looked at Lyrian. If this connection is real, you must prove it through the spirit bonding. Trial. The council murmured in surprise. Lyrian nodded without hesitation. I accept. The king turned to Milo. And you, human, do you accept as well? Milo looked at Lyrian. Then he looked at the council. Yes, I accept. Kale's face darkened. The king raised his hand. Then prepare. At moonrise, you will enter the crystal cavern. You will walk separate paths. If your bond is false, the cavern will reject you. Lyrian stepped forward. And if it's true, the king's eyes softened. Then it will light the sky for all to see. Later that evening, as the sun began to fall behind the silver hills. Lyrian and Milo stood at the entrance of the crystal cavern. It was a sacred place, older than the palace, built into the mountains by time itself. The entrance shimmered with blue light, and the air felt heavy with silence. Lyrian turned to him. Inside, the cave shows your heart, not what you say, but what you truly feel. Milo nodded. Then I guess we'll find out everything. She smiled. Whatever happens, I don't regret meeting you. Me neither. They took one last look at each other before stepping forward into the light. The cave doors closing quietly behind them. Their paths had begun. The air inside the crystal cavern was different. It was cold but calm, and the ground below glowed with soft blue light. Crystals sparkled along the walls like stars frozen in stone. Milo looked around, and then suddenly a wall of crystal slid up between him and Lyrian. They were now separated. He shouted, Lyrian. Her voice came through the wall. This is part of the trial. Don't worry, we must walk alone. Milo took a deep breath. Then I'll see you at the end. And with that, he stepped forward. The path inside the cavern twisted and turned. Some parts were narrow, others opened into wide rooms filled with glowing water and shining rock. But the strange thing was he kept seeing visions, not dreams, not illusions. They were memories. He saw himself as a child, sitting alone in a small room on Earth, watching stars outside his window. He saw himself trying to fix an old radio for his little sister, failing again and again. You're not strong. A voice whispered from the air. You're just a worker. A nobody. Milo shook his head. I know who I am. He kept walking. More visions came of other humans laughing at him for being quiet, of commanders ignoring him, of always being in the background. Then he saw Lyrian standing in front of him, looking disappointed. You'll leave one day, the vision of Lyrian said. Humans always leave. I won't, Milo said to the vision. I didn't stay because of duty. I stayed because of her. The vision faded. A soft wind blew through the crystal walls, and for the first time, Milo felt warmth in the cave. Far away in another part of the cavern, Lyrian walked alone too. Her path was brighter, but the light shifted with her emotions. She saw visions to memories of her childhood, being told how to speak, how to sit, how to bow. She saw herself looking at the stars, dreaming of flying away, but always told, you are a princess, you belong here. Then a new vision came her, standing before the royal court, older, stronger, but still silent. Her father saying, you must choose a noble suitor. That is your duty. The vision repeated again and again. Then another voice whispered in the air. You cannot lead and love someone below you. A human cannot carry the weight of royalty. Lyrian closed her eyes. No, she whispered. He carries honesty. He carries truth. That is more than most nobles. The lights around her grew brighter. Another vision appeared, Kale, standing tall, asking for her hand. She stepped away. Then she saw Milo, offering nothing but a simple smile and a pendant made by hand. Lyrian smiled. He asked for nothing, but gave me everything. The cavern accepted her words, and the light around her became warm, almost golden. As they both reached the final chamber, a large wall of glass like crystal separated them. They could now see each other, but not touch. Lyrian stepped forward. So did Milo. They looked at each other through the clear barrier. Then a voice echoed through the cavern, not male or female, but something in between, ancient, calm, and powerful. You have walked your paths. You have faced your truths. Now, answer this. Is your bond real, or only made of moments? Milo placed a hand on the glass. It's real. Lyrian stepped closer. It is not a bond made by title, but by trust. Then speak what your heart cannot hide, the voice said, and the light will decide. Lyrian took a breath. I did not know the future. I did not know if a princess and a human can live side by side. But I know this when I am with him. I feel free. Milo spoke next. I didn't come here for power or attention. I came here because she saw me, and I saw her. Not as a princess, just as Lyrian. The cavern was silent. Then a beam of pure white light burst from the top of the chamber. shooting through the ceiling and rising high into the sky above the palace. Every council member, every guard, every citizen saw it from the council hall. The king stood and whispered, "The bond is true." Kale, standing nearby, clenched his teeth. The barrier in the cavern faded. Lyrian and Milo stepped forward at the same time. They didn't speak. They just stood together in the center of the glowing chamber, the crystal light dancing around them. Lyrian looked up at him. "We passed." Milo smiled. "I knew we would." They walked out of the cavern side by side, where the king and council waited. The king looked at them both for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "The trial is sacred," he said, "and the trial has spoken." He turned to the council. "This bond may not follow tradition, but it follows truth." Kale stepped forward, but the king raised a hand. "Enough, Kale. You spoke from pride. They spoke from the heart. We must listen to the light, not our own pride." Kale lowered his head and said no more. That evening, Lyrian and Milo stood once again on the high balcony. The stars above Velaria sparkled more brightly than before. Lyrian held his hand gently. "You've changed everything," she said. Milo shook his head. "No, we changed it together." Below them, the people began lighting soft lanterns in honor of the spirit trial. Some still whispered. Some still wondered. But many, many more began to hope. And on that night, among stars and crystals, a human and an alien princess stood not as worker and royal but simply as two hearts who had found each other. The sun rose slowly over the shining towers of Velaria. Its golden rays touched the high palace walls and the crystal bridges, making them glow with morning light. A soft wind blew through the trees, carrying the sweet scent of blue flowers blooming. In the royal gardens, Milo stood on the balcony once again, but this time he felt different. He was no longer just a visitor or a human who had come from a distant world. He was something more now, part of this place. Lyrian walked up beside him. She wore a light blue royal robe, and her hair was tied back with a silver ribbon. Her face was calm, but her eyes were bright with thought. "The people are talking," she said quietly. "About us?" Milo asked. "Yes," she replied. "Some are still unsure. Some are even angry, but many are curious. A few even support us." Milo looked out at the city below. "It'll take time." Lyrian nodded. "Yes, but change always begins slowly." Later that morning, the royal hall was filled once again. But this time, it was not a trial. It was a gathering, a meeting of cultures. Leaders and nobles from across the Velarian regions arrived. Some had seen the light from the spirit cavern. Others had heard rumors, and a few had come simply to look upon the human who had taken the princess's side and her heart. Milo stood at the side of the hall, not on the golden stairs, but below them, among the people. Lyrian stepped forward, standing before the council. She did not wear her full crown, only a simple band of silver. "I speak today not as a princess," she said, "but as someone who has learned something new." There was silence in the room. Then she continued, "For years, we have believed in old customs, old laws that kept our hearts locked behind rules. But what if those rules were never tested by truth?" She looked around the room. "I walked the spirit cavern. I saw my own fears. I saw the walls I placed around myself. And then I saw him, Milo. Not a soldier, not a worker, just a person, and I saw something real." Some council members whispered quietly. Others listened with curious eyes. The king, sitting on the high seat, stayed silent. Lyrian finished. "I did not ask for full change today. I ask only for a step, a chance for trust. Let our people learn from this moment." Then she stepped back. Milo stayed quiet. He didn't need to speak. His actions had already spoken for him. The hall remained still. Then an older councilwoman stood. Her name was Var-El, known for her strong voice and sharp mind. She looked at Milo, then at Lyrian. "I was raised with tradition," she said, "and I still believe in its strength. But even I cannot ignore what the spirit cavern has shown us." She turned to the rest of the council. "Perhaps this union is not weakness. Perhaps it is a new path." A few other council members slowly nodded. The king finally stood. He walked down the golden steps and stood before Milo. For many years, he said, I believe my daughter's future was written in stone. But stones can break, and sometimes they must so new things can grow. He looked Milo in the eyes. Do you still choose this path, even when it may be full of doubt and challenge? Milo nodded. I do. Lyrian stepped beside him and took his hand. And so do I. The king raised their hands gently and said, Then let this be known. Today, a new bond is accepted, and tomorrow, the stars will shine on a new path. The hall remained quiet for a moment, then soft applause began. Not loud, not wild. But honest. The days that followed were filled with both joy and struggle. Some citizens welcomed the news with celebration. In the market squares, people spoke of the human who walked the cavern and passed the ancient trial. In schools, young students asked questions about Earth and about Milo, but not all were pleased. Some nobles sent letters of protest. Others warned that tradition was slipping away. Kale, the noble who had once hoped to marry Lyrian, left the capital quietly. He said nothing, but his eyes were cold as ice. Lyrian and Milo did not try to force acceptance. They simply lived openly and honestly. They walked through the city gardens. They helped at the healers' quarters. They spoke with artists, farmers, and builders, and little by little, the people began to understand. One evening, as the stars blinked over Valaria, Milo and Lyrian sat on the palace roof. It was peaceful. She leaned against him. Do you miss Earth? Sometimes, he said, but not as much as I thought I would. Why? Because when I look at you, I see home. Lyrian smiled. And you? Milo asked. I used to fear being alone, she whispered, even in a palace full of people. But now, I'm not afraid. They sat in silence, listening to the quiet music of wind chimes hanging near the towers. Suddenly, Lyrian looked at him and said, The future will not be easy. I know, Milo said, but I want to build it with you. He gently took her hand. Then let's build it stone by stone, day by day. Weeks later, a small group of human diplomats arrived. From Earth. They were surprised to hear the news. A human Milo now walked beside the Princess of Valaria, not as a guard, but as a partner. Some doubted, others were curious, and a few saw what the Valarians had already begun to see. That love, trust, and courage can build bridges deeper than any starship. And so, under twin moons and a sky full of endless stars, a new chapter began, not just for Milo and Lyrian, but for two worlds slowly learning to walk side by side. One morning, Milo woke to a soft knock at his door. It was Lyrian, carrying 2 cups of warm tea. Good morning, she smiled softly. Good morning, Milo replied, taking a cup. They sat together by the window, looking out over the palace gardens, where flowers bloomed in gentle colors and the sunlight touched everything warmly. Do you remember when we first met? Lyrian asked. Milo chuckled. How could I forget? I accidentally walked into your chamber and caused you great shock. Lyrian laughed lightly. Yes, that was quite a surprise. But it led us here, Milo said, and I'm thankful for that. The peaceful moment was interrupted by a messenger arriving with urgent news. The northern villages report increased tensions, the messenger said. Some nobles resist the changes in the capital. Lyrian frowned. We must not let old fears divide our people. Milo stood. I'll go with you. We can speak to them directly. Lyrian nodded. Yes. Let us show them that our bond is more than just a story. They traveled to the northern villages, where the air was cooler and the mountains stretched high. In the town square, villagers gathered, curious and cautious. Lyrian stepped forward. I'm Lyrian, Princess of Valaria. This is Milo, my partner. Murmurs rose among the crowd. Many of you fear change, Lyrian said, but we are here to listen, to understand your worries and answer your questions. Milo added, I am not here to take anything from you. I want to learn from you, a village elder stepped forward. We respect tradition, but we also want peace. Lyrian smiled gently. Then let us build peace together. Over the next days, Milo and Lyrian spoke with many people, farmers, traders, teachers. Each conversation was a step toward unity. At night, they returned to the palace, tired but hopeful. Back at the palace, Kale watched these efforts with growing frustration. He believed that the old ways were the only ways. But even some nobles who had once sided with him began to change their minds. Kale knew he must find a new plan. One evening, Milo found Lyrian studying old maps of Valaria's ancient lands. "What are you looking for?" he asked. Lyrian smiled. "Paths. Places where we can build bridges between our worlds." Milo looked over the maps. "This is a good start." Days turned into weeks. Their bond grew stronger. So did the trust between humans and Valarians. The palace began to feel less like a place of rules and more like a home. One night, as they walked beneath the stars, Milo took Lyrian's hand. "No matter what comes," he said, "I will stand with you." Lyrian squeezed his hand. "And I'm with you." Together, they faced challenges, but they also found joy. The people of Valaria began to believe in a future where differences were strengths, and love was a powerful force. And as the twin moons rose high above the palace, Milo and Lyrian looked to the stars, ready to walk forward, side by side, into whatever the future held.